Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review number 280. Today we're going to talk about Ancient Terrible Things. This is a new game. I believe this is the first game from Pleasant Company Games. And it plays 2 to 4 players, and it has an interesting take on the Yahtzee mechanic. Now I normally hate the Yahtzee mechanic because every game has the mechanic, and it's like, really? Again? But the King of Tokyo, I've got that one. That's a fun one. But that one is good because of all the different various special card powers. Now this has a whole kind of weird take on it, and I'll explain that in the walkthrough part of it. But before I get too much into the review, let's just go ahead and jump right into that walkthrough and take a look at how it plays. Okay, here we can see the game board and some of the different components that come with the game. Now each player is going to get a little player board here. It's going to tell you all the steps that you'll do on your turn, some of the different iconography and what they mean, and these are the different action spaces you can see on the board there. So you'll be placing your little avatar here and not only taking the action of the space, but also dealing with some cards that are going to be dealt out there. You got these here, and then you also have little spots that keep some of your different tokens. So you have courage, feet, and focus. You'll start the game with some of these. Now some players will start with an extra, courage token, extra feet token, and then one player is going to start with this map, which is basically the start player for the turn. It's also going to be worth 1 point at the end of the game. Let's go ahead and populate the board with cards here, then I'll talk about how a turn's going to work. Okay, a couple things to note. The swag deck here has populated some cards out here. These are going to be available for purchase. These will go up in front of the player on display. Some of them will be end-game scoring. Some of them will be little tricks that the player can do. Players will also start the game with 3 of these feet cards. And you can see here, this is the cost in feet tokens to play. And they're going to be a variety of effects, all kinds of cool different effects. And again, these are going to cost you these blue feet tokens to play. Also, we have here our encounter deck. Now here I have all of the cards that come with the game, but based on the number of players, you're going to have a certain number of these green ones, a certain number of these yellow ones, and a certain number of these red ones. And these actually kind of get more difficult, I guess, as the game moves along. So you're going to deal all those out, and then if you take a look at the cards, you'll notice each of these has a little icon here, which describes what kind of encounter it's going to be, but also shows you which kind of token is going to be put out on the spot. So some of these will have multiple icons and you'll put out multiple tokens. There's also a chance that some of these tokens may be left on a spot. So when you take an action with your player, you're going to move here, you're going to take whatever tokens are on there. You'll also be able to activate the ability of the spot, and then you're going to have an encounter with a card. Now this kind of icons here shows you what you need. So if we take a look here, we need 3 dice showing a 5 or higher. You may have an encounter like that, 3 of a kind. Basically you need 3s, 3 of a kind that's 3 or higher. And then if you look over here, we have 3 dice showing 4 or higher, and so on. If you're able to successfully defeat this card, you get the card as a little victory prize, and these are going to be worth the points at the end of the game. If you don't succeed, the cards are going to go over here and get discarded to the rumor pile. And then you have to take one of these terror tokens here. So these are randomly shuffled up and then dealt along this board, and a certain number is dealt based on the number of players. And the first person to fail an encounter is going to take this here, and this is worth 0 negative points at the end of the game. But as the game moves along, they're going to get worse and worse and worse, and these at the top are going to be worth -3 points, basically 1 per tentacle. Now the game's going to end in one of 2 ways. The game will end once the last terror token is taken, or once we run out of cards from the encounter deck. So what are you going to do on your turn? The first thing you're going to do is, if there are no cards in the encounter spot, you're going to go ahead and refresh cards from the encounter deck. So as people go along, so maybe I take this one, and the blue player takes this one, and let's say we're playing a 3-player game and the green one takes this one. These will be empty, and then these 3 will be available on the next round. And as I said before, as you move to a spot, you're going to take the token, be able to activate the action, and then you're going to either try to encounter this card in desperation or through the normal sort of encounter means. Let's go through all these actions really quickly. The first one here, you can give an opponent one of your tokens and you take one of theirs. So you can give them a focus token and then take a feet token from them, or vice versa. This spot here lets you discard a number of feet cards and you draw that many cards. So you're always going to have 3 usually, and then you're going to, let's say, discard 2 and draw 2 in that case. This spot here, you can either take a focus token or a feet token plus addition to whatever token's on there. Over here, you can do a desperation action on any card that's available on the board. Usually you can only do take a desperation action on this card. but this will let you actually take a desperation action on somewhere else. I'll explain what that is in a second, but that lets you kind of chain up and do sort of kind of a double move. This one here lets you take either of these two tokens, courage or money. And then this one here lets you take the start player. So you'll take this, and then on the next round you'll be going first, and again this is worth 1 point at the end of the game. So after you've moved to a spot, taken the action, then you have a chance to take a desperation action. And if you look here at the number of points, you can basically just go ahead and spend this number of desperation, or courage markers I should say, and you can just take the card outright. Now there's a couple of reasons you might do that. One, this may be hard to do, to actually encounter the card for you. And there's a couple other reasons. I'll explain that in a second though. So if you don't do desperation, or you may even do the desperation action here. So again, if you go here, you can do a desperation action somewhere else. So let's say I could go here, spend 2 courage tokens, snag that card, and then go ahead and encounter this card normally, or even do the normal desperation action there. So it's a way to kind of get more than 1 card per turn. So after possibly doing desperation, then you go ahead and encounter the card. So this is where you're going to start rolling dice. So in the middle of the board here, you can see we have our normal focus dice here, and we have 5 of those. Now through the action of some of these feat cards, you can actually play and get other dice into your pool. So if you have any cards that tell you to add dice to your pool, you want to do that before you roll. You can't add any more dice to your pool once you roll. So here we have a luck die, here we have a feat dice, and there we have a panic die. So let's say we had added all 3 of those magically to our supply. So we go ahead and maybe just roll them. So on your turn you get 2 rerolls, which is kind of like Yahtzee, but it works a little bit differently, and it confused the heck out of me. And I had to go on Board Game Geek and read it, and then I went back, I was like, the rule book didn't say that. I went back to the rule book, I'm like, the rule book does say that. So it is a little confusing. If my explanation confuses you, check Board Game Geek, go back to the rule book. It's super clear, but for some reason I had a hard time with it. So you have these dice here. So now I've done my first roll. I've got 2 more rerolls. Now I can never reroll the panic die. Okay, that red die, once it's rolled, you're done. I have 2 options now. I can reroll all of my dice, or I can pay focus tokens, and these are the green tokens here, to reroll just a few of my dice. So if I kind of get something, I'm really close. You can see here I've got 3 2s. I've actually got 4 2s, but let's say I had only 2 2s, right? And I wanted to get, the thing was, 4 of a kind with 2s or higher. And I'm like, well, I really want to keep these 2s, but I really just, I don't want to have to reroll everything, because if you reroll everything, you got to reroll everything, even the stuff you want to keep. So I could spend maybe these 2 and then reroll these 2 green dice here, and then roll those and try to get them. So you can spend, but that counts as one of your rerolls, right? So now I've got first reroll, I've got 1 more reroll. Now the luck ones here, you can always reroll these anytime you want, because these are just sort of like the good luck dice. So even if I just want to say, I just want to reroll the 1 luck die, or I want to reroll like 2 of these green ones by spending the tokens here, then I could do those and the yellow one. And then the other thing with these focus die here is you can actually spend the feat icons here to move them up or down 1 spot. But like I said, you get 1 main roll and then 2 rerolls, but it's kind of up to you to decide how you want to do that. If you just want to reroll them all again, you can go for it. Now sometimes a feat card is going to let you get extra rerolls beyond those 2, but that's the only way that you can get beyond those first 2 rerolls. So if you match the requirements of the card, then you'll be able to keep it and score for points. In addition to applying the dice to the encounters, once you stop rolling, every player gets the scenario card, and there's scenario 1 and scenario 2. And each everybody has to decide, okay, let's do scenario 1, which I think is easier, I'm not sure. And but it basically is a way of generating these resources. So if I had applied, let's say, for example, these 4 dice to that, and I had these other ones left over, I can take and try to apply that combination to here to generate extra resources. And that might be another reason that you do a desperation. I spend the courage tokens to get rid of this. There's no card for me to roll against, so now I'm just rolling the dice to get the various resources. And you can see here, if I have a die 4 or higher, I can get a focus token. A pair will give me 2 feats. 3 of a kind will give me 3. So in this case also, if you had like 4 of a kind, you would get an extra courage token, and here you can get a run of those, and you can get gold there, or money. So again, after you do that, if you fail the encounter, you got to take one of the terrible tokens. And after that, then you're going to move your marker down here to the trading post. And here you can buy as many cards as you want, but let's say I bought these two, and that'll be like that. And then after I'm done buying everything, then we'll refill these. If you don't buy anything, the left one here goes underneath the pile, and we deal out a new one. Everything shifts left. So again, these can be used to kind of break the rules, get extra points at the end of the game, do all kinds of crazy stuff. Some of these you'll have to exhaust, and you basically just flip the card over and exhaust it. You can use them once per turn. After you buy a card, you maybe will refresh your hand of cards up to 3, and then the next player takes their turn. They go out to a spot, then they have their encounter, move here, and then everybody moves here, and then you just go back here and maybe reset turn order based on somebody new having the map. That's pretty much it. You're going to play the game, collect points. Some of these will give you extra points. And again, these will give you negative points. There are achievements, which are pretty interesting. They add another little kind of layer to scoring. So first person to get 3 encounters that have the little focus icon is going to grab the achievement here. So they're going to get 4 points. Now you can have that stolen from you if somebody else surpasses you. And they have one of these for each of the different encounter types. So that might be something you consider, not just the face value points, but also whether it combos with one of your achievements. And as I said, some of these we're going to have multiple encounter tokens on there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. I really enjoyed this game. Now I normally hate Yahtzee mechanics. Every game does them. It's just like an uncreative mechanic to me. Now I do have King of Tokyo in my collection. I really enjoy King of Tokyo, but I think that's because of all of the different special abilities that you can do. And the games are going to play out really wonky and differently. And it's a very lighthearted, silly theme and all that stuff. So this is a really cool approach on that, and it feels similar to that, where you've got a hand of the feat cards. You can buy the different equipment. But the really cool thing about this is, at the beginning, you're going to have those terror tokens that are worth 0 negative points, possibly. I mean, you could shuffle up and have them so that, you start right away with -1s based on how those come out. But you can kind of push it and say, okay, I'm going to go here and block this one that is going to be worth a fair amount of points. Basically ignore the card, take the 0-point penalty, and spend all of my dice rolling trying to get resources out of the scenario card. And then now I've kind of built up a nice, ability to be tactical and, switch gears and spend tokens to, really get a nice dice roll out of my next upcoming encounter. And so you have that interesting idea of all those different special ability cards that you can get, the different equipment and stuff that you can buy, and sort of a little bit of worker placement type of blocking idea to block somebody from getting that third, focus encounter or the third feat encounter, so that they're going to get the achievement. The turn order comes into play a little bit, and some cards will give you there's an equipment that gives you bonus points for getting the terrible trouble markers. So there's a lot going on, and a lot of cool stuff that you can do on your roll. Now, because of that, you can kind of get bogged down a little bit of AP, especially as you're first learning the game, because everybody's reading the equipment, everybody's reading their hand of cards, they're reading all the different encounters and which types of die rolls that they need to get. So it can be kind of like an AP where you kind of sit there, wait for somebody to kind of puzzle out their die rolls, and it moves on to the next guy and the next guy. That's really the main drawback, but that's going to go away as people play the game more, and oh, that equipment, oh, that came out again, or this and that, or this encounter. And so you just kind of have to go for it. And so I think that's probably the main drawback, because there's so many different things and avenues that you can go, especially as you build up a lot of tokens. You have the whole thing where you can do the desperation. So I go here, take the desperation from this card, and then encounter this card, or desperate, do the desperation on both, and then spend them all on getting resources. So you can kind of tech up and do all kinds of cool little different mitigation stuff with it. So it's really fun. I like it. It's just like a smorgasbord of dice mitigation, and it's just a fun little kind of puzzle to weave through. So it's got that, it really kind of gets at that, some of those really meatier dice games, but it's very much a fun, coolly themed. I think the theme actually works really well with this. It's Cthulhu kind of, but which is overused, but it's cool because you go out and you explore and you're like, ooh, am I going to get out of this situation? Am I going to get tentacled up and all that stuff? So it really actually works very well thematically with the game. And I think the only drawback is that for folks' first couple of plays, and I've seen this, is you're like, what the heck? Oh, I can do this. Then I can go here and I can get a money token. Okay, that'll help me buy money later in the turn. But if I go do this, so the AP can happen. But again, as people get used to the game and get used to that whole die rolling mechanic, which is kind of off-putting at first because it's so different, then I think the AP is going to set in. So definitely give this one more than your typical one play that a lot of people like to do games. But definitely take a look at this one. I think it's going to be good. You know, you can get this through Game Salute and maybe some other places. But anyway, Ancient Terrible Things, definitely a high recommendation from me. Thanks.